Amit is currently the chairman of L'Oreal India. In career over 3 decades, he has had some amazing achievements. He has worked in businesses across FMCG, entertainment, media, beauty. He was part of the team that set up Coca-Cola India, founded Viacom 18 JV in India, and subsequently led Viacom and MTV Asia as managing director and EVP. Um, Before joining L'Oreal India, he was the managing director of AkzoNobel India and then the managing director for AkzoNobel North and West Europe. He continues to serve as non-executive director on the board of AkzoNobel India. He currently also serves as the India board chair of the Modern Marketing Association MMA India. He has a master's in business administration from Faculty of Management Studies FMS and has completed an advanced management program from the Wharton Business School. He is an avid wildlife conservationist and is a strong supporter of literacy of underprivileged children. He's associated with several social sector causes. He's also a strong advocate of vegetarianism for not just religious but also ethical and environmental reasons. So it's a real pleasure and privilege to have somebody who has actually led 3 or 4 such marquee businesses in India, from Coca-Cola to Viacom to AkzoNobel to L'Oreal, right? We would be lucky to have even leader of one of those businesses. I think your presence here and your talk will inspire the group here and many more. The topic that we chose today is an interesting one, right? I assume that most, if not all, of the attendees today here will already be vegetarians. But I thought it's an interesting topic still, because as Jains, we get this as part of our heritage. But we increasingly see that many of the Jains themselves are drifting away from this aspect of our culture and our religion, because they don't see any point in it. And what we wanted to do in this session was to hear from you why it's important to be vegetarian, not just from a religious perspective, but also ethical, environmental, and moral perspectives, so that we as Jains can think of this issue more holistically and be real ambassadors of vegetarianism, which we believe is a real important way for creating a better earth, a better society. I have my own views on why it's important, and I would love to come in later and ask questions, but we mainly want to hear from you, Amit Jain. So over to you. Maybe you can talk a little bit about your journey as a corporate professional. People are keen to hear about that. And then also on this particular topic, whatever your thoughts are, let's hear about that, and then we can have a bit of a free-flowing discussion with some Q&A.
Thank you, Piyush. That was very generous, that introduction. And I would just want to compliment, Jain.in over here for putting this, entire association of like-minded individuals across 3 continents. That's very, very impressive, what you've already got in place. So when Piyush mentioned this first to me, quite honestly, I was apprehensive. And I did tell him, Dekho, I'm not exactly a hardcore practicing Jain. I'm not sure what I can add to a group like this. And then he spoke to me about some of the topics which you've been talking about and debating. And that was very reassuring that this is exactly the group which I'd like to, share some of my thoughts with. So first, the anchor of what I'm talking about is sitting inside Ahimsa Paramo Dharma. Yeah. So if Jainism has given one big thing to this world, how Jainism has influenced Mahatma Gandhi, who influenced Martin Luther King Jr., it is Ahimsa Paramo Dharma. That is one big gift we have given to the world, that's for sure. And of course, we pretty much invented it 2,500 years back. And it's just that we don't know how to talk about it anymore in a relevant way. We still have many archaic ways of expressing ourselves, unfortunately. But so this is what this is about. And second, I think, Piyush, you've already made a very big point. See, I'm not having this conversation here as a subject matter expert. So I believe there have been some very illustrious speakers over here who've come in and they've talked about the wealth of their 30, 40 years of experience. I'm going to be basically talking to you about a subject which I'm still researching. So I want you to filter it in that kind of a context. I'm not going to be talking about my career, what I learned, but I will be talking about something which I deeply believe in, and over the last few years have tried to drive my teams towards making a difference around that. So what is my objective of the session today? So one, please treat this session not as one Gyani giving Gyan to you, but treat this session as something which you wish to learn. And learn in a way so that you can go ahead, and Piyush has already made the point, and be advocates for it. So I hope to share with you some pertinent information, and stop me where you believe it's not relevant, or there's something which I'm skipping. Challenge me, please, because I'm trying to build on a body of thinking with the help of a couple of people. I must acknowledge that a cousin of mine from LA has given me a substantive part of the content which I'll be sharing with you just now. His name is Ashwin, and out of a sheer passion for this topic, he's recently relocated to India, and I'll shortly be also introducing him to yourselves. He's a real crusader for this cause. Yeah, so I'm.
He should have also joined this.
Bilkul. You're very right. No, but his expertise.
We can do a dedicated session with him some other time.
Bilkul, because
I spoke to him briefly once. He's in Chandigarh, right?
जी हाँ, बिल्कुल. He's just relocated. 2 महीने हुए हैं, and he's just come here literally driven by this cause. So that is my interest in having the security of our Jain community of making slightly heretical claims right now, because I feel safe in this cocoon. Yeah. And with that safety in mind, I'd like to propose to you a body of thinking which you can pressure test along with me, and then we can figure out what we can do with this. And I'd like to engage some of you offline in terms of what appealed, what did not at the end of the session. So that is the objective of having this session over here. Rather than giving you any pearls of wisdom, it is to co-create something. We were talking about how we Jains are not so good at building a narrative. Hopefully this could be one narrative which totally is anchored into the very basis of our faith. Right. So Piyush, you said that I should say a little bit about myself. So I come from a family of almost 5 generations of professionals, initially lawyers for a long time, and more recently in my parents' generation, government servants, IAS, IFS, Indian Air Force is where my father made his career with. So we are not a typical Jain business family. We are relatively more liberal, and there isn't the classical Jainism underpinning to our family from both my parents' side. So that's how I was brought up. However, I was fortunate that my dadi was she's a lady who got a PhD in Sanskrit in the early 1920s, and she espoused the cause of Jainism and represented Jainism on several global forums. Very, very erudite woman. So bachpan mein jab main ghar jata tha for my summer vacations along with my cousins, we used to get really deeply impacted by her, and some of the tenets of Samyak Gyan, Samyak Darshan, Samyak Charitra have stuck to us. And of course, Ahimsa Paramo Dharma, our entire family pretty much has been largely vegetarian, even though we are dispersed all over the globe now. Yeah. So that's who we are. So most of us would not go to temples. We do not practice too many rituals, but we try and have some of these very basic tenets of Jainism in terms of how we go about our everyday life. So in all honesty. So when you have a father in the Air Force, and especially when you see him going to war, that's not exactly non-violence. So I'm not the best advertisement for that, to be quite honest. But the one thing which was common was, Ahimsa Paramo Dharma, in terms of kisi bhi, छोटे से छोटे कीड़े को मार नहीं सकते हो, चींटी को भी देख के चलो, ये छोटी छोटी चीजें बचपन से हमारी जिंदगी में थी. And of course, then, because my father was in the Air Force, I went to a hostel, and there my resolve for staying a vegetarian was seriously tested. Even now, some of my dorm mates joke कि अच्छा जब बत्ती जाती थी हम जैनी की प्लेट में जल्दी से चिकन का पीस डाल देते थे. That was the joke in my dorm कि इसको नॉनवेज कैसे बनाए. But somehow I persevered over there. And then I moved into corporate life. And my corporate life was between four companies, fundamentally 36 years. Initially with a company which doesn't exist right now. It's called ICI, Imperial Chemicals. In India, when I joined it, it was the second largest multinational in the country in the late 80s. And I was there initially, and then I was a part of the startup team of Coca-Cola. वहाँ 14 साल लगाए, working across India and all over Asia. And then I worked setting up a media company called Viacom 18. We launched a channel called Colors. By virtue of that, I was jobless, so I was exported to run Viacom, which is Paramount Pictures, DreamWorks, MTV for Asia Pacific. So I headed that out of Singapore. And uske baad I came back to ICI, which was getting taken over by AkzoNobel in a 13 billion all cash deal those days, to run the listed company in India, and putting together a big merger, which now is called AkzoNobel India. It's still a listed company. And I still stay on the board over there. Uske baad, I went to run a big chunk of the business in Europe, and I was based out of Amsterdam for 5 years, which was very interesting. And once again, over having worked in places like China, Hong Kong in my Coke days and Viacom days, and Europe, very recently. Your whole commitment towards some of the tenets of Jainism, and especially vegetarianism, now and then do get tested. I'll be honest with you. In fact, our customers, very often, my team used to say, boss, as soon as you order a soup and a salad, those people get really uncomfortable. And instead of talking about business, they want to know about your principles. And I can tell you, they found it fascinating that there is indeed a faith like Jainism, which is 2,500 years old, and we were so advanced that even then we knew about microbes. और हम दही नहीं खाते थे, और मुंह पर पट्टी लगाते थे. They find it fascinating. I can tell you that. And then more recently, I wanted to be back in India, and which is why I joined L'Oreal in India. So, what's common in this? This sounds very, very different. Very often journalists ask me, Ki, Acha, Amit, what was the grand scheme? There was none. But what was common is I worked for, brands with big distribution, typically global brands. And coincidentally, they've always been number 1 or 2 globally. But not that I went searching for it, but that's the way it happened. So to that extent, I guess I've been slightly spoiled of having worked with global leaders. But intensely ethical companies, which always gave me the opportunity of being who I am, practicing, my faith, my religion. Wherever I went, if there was an official banquet, to give you an idea, I used to lobby with the Politburo member for propaganda in China. And wahan bhi, these guys used to make sure there's vegetarian food for me. So in some way, it kind of makes you very distinctive and differentiated, is what I realized. And as long as you don't let people get distracted, it's something which tells people about the courage of conviction among us practicing Jains, at least. I can tell you that. Yeah. So what was common to my career? If I were to pick up one thing, because you've just heard from a very eminent corporate personality, so I don't want to go into lessons. But the one common approach which I've always had is to typically look at doing things disruptively for bigger impact. Yeah. तो अगर मैं आपको 1-2 उदाहरण दूं, while I was with Coca-Cola, we came 10 years after Pepsi into India, and we had a lot of catching up to do. So, I was in charge of setting up the bottling company called Hindustan Coca-Cola. And we realized that there was a big problem in terms of affordability. And, the typical Indian could not afford a 10 rupee Coca-Cola. I'm talking about now late 90s. 25 साल पुरानी बात आपको बता रहा हूँ. So that is when we decided to do the entire value chain of the whole go-to-market, distribution, production, etc. And we launched a Coke at 5 for the first time. Yeah, this was on 1st Jan 2000. I still remember. We had Amir Khan fronted, and it pretty much changed the entire dynamic of the industry. Uske baad. After that, when I moved to media, I remember, when I first said कि अच्छा भाई general entertainment family channel चलानी है, everybody said देखो तुम कोक से आए हो, तुम्हें मीडिया नहीं समझ आती है. यहाँ स्टार है, जी है, सहारा है, सोनी है, blah blah blah. You don't have a hope in hell. We said ठीक है, देखेंगे. And we did something very unconventional. We launched Colors without Saas Bahu and the work of it. And we did Khatro Ke Khiladi, and we did Big Boss, and we did some really fun stuff. And we did a young general entertainment channel. And by the end of 18 months, we actually briefly overtook Star to become the #1 channel at that point of time. Went against, and of course, I was fortunate enough to have a great partner in terms of Network 18, and a large part of the credit must go to them for making that possible. Recently, that entire business has been transacted and has gone into Reliance control, and I've heard incredible numbers against at what this was transacted at. So I won't go on and on about that because that's not the topic of this discussion. So let me come to what is relevant today. So, we've got big problems in the world, and the entire area of climate change and sustainability, if you agree with me, would be among the top couple of problems in the world. Yeah, we can talk about Ukraine, we can talk about Hamas, etc., etc. But if there is an underlying problem which impacts all our lives, all 7.5 billion jitne prani hai is dharti par, it is climate change and sustainability. There's no two ways about it. So I've been asking myself that, dekho, on one hand, COP28, COP30, Modi ji wants to, host a summit, and God bless him for taking leadership on this, even though we have refused to, sign the whole coal agreement. We in China, you must have read about it. We are going to do nothing about that. So most of it happens on an intergovernmental level. Best case, we corporates, I can tell you at L'Oreal, we are passionate about sustainability. We have set zero emission targets. Both our factories have become zero emission in the last 2 years now. Yeah. And in the next 2 years, we'll declare L'Oreal India as net zero. But, it's a scratch, literally. All these things put together, if you were to add up all the corporate emissions, you won't even come to 20% of what the problem is. Yeah. So the thinking over here, and that's the subject of today's discussion, sorry for the long introduction, but I think context is important, is how can we as individuals, and some of us collectively, and maybe we as a Jain community with the underpinning of Ahimsa Parama Dharma, can make a difference. Yeah, that's the thinking. Because ठीक है, government कर रही है, corporate कर रहा है, renewable energy वाले कर रहे हैं, हम क्या करें? बत्ती बंद कर दें? पानी कम इस्तेमाल करें? Or can we do something which is far more substantive? So that is my invitation. Please think about. So what I'm going to do is first spend the next 5-10 minutes in establishing a burning platform. Yeah. Why is this a huge crisis? All of us read about it. I'm just trying to, with the help of, my cousin, I put together some stuff which I just wanted to share with you in terms of what is happening. So we know that the entire, climate change thing is massive right now. It's impacting all our lives. India has been experiencing climate change for the last 15 years. Unfortunately, the previous governments never acknowledged it. When you talk about the deaths of farmers through drought in Vidarbha, what do you think that was? It was drought which was impacted by climate change. I've seen it for myself. Today at L'Oreal, we run a massive project which supports families on regreening a part of a district called Yavatmal. So I've been close to this, and I can tell you that's climate change at its worst, where farmers just kill themselves because they can't repay their debts. That's how serious it is in India. I don't even have to make the case for this. Yeah. Last year, I'm sure most of us have read about it. It was the hottest year in this globe's history, sorry. And now this is getting exacerbated much more. If you think about what has happened to the wildfires in California, British Columbia, Australia, we had 49 degrees centigrade temperature in Seattle. I couldn't believe it. They have an average temperature of 20, I think. Yeah. Germany had floods. I used to live in that part of the world, and I found it unbelievable when I saw some of the pictures or what happened in Northern Europe during the floods, in London, etc., etc. And what is far more important, wo sab to chalo, I can see Neeraj ji is nodding, saying, we experienced a little bit about that. And I'm sure, our friend in the US also has seen water entering basements in New York. But Bharatvarsh mein, I can tell you, I was in Naldera in the month of June, and the famous Himachal cloudburst happened the day I was driving down. And I saw some of that coming down. I was driving in the middle of that. And I personally saw, unfortunately or fortunately, some of the landslides. And I was just ahead of them, and the roads were getting blocked. I've never seen this kind of rain in my life. And all of us read about it, what it did, killed hundreds of people, flooded parts of Punjab, etc., etc. If that was not enough, the whole story got repeated in Sikkim. And we know there was the whole glacier melt burst. The entire glacier lake broke its band, came down the Tista, wiped out, hundreds and hundreds of families. Well, fortunately, there weren't so many deaths as compared to what happened in Himachal, which was much worse. Abhi recently, Uttarakhand ke kaand hum sunte rehte hain. Now, we can keep blaming governments, etc., but the fundamental to it is climate change. Now, what's happening? The greenhouse gases are causing excessive evaporation. And literally, हम लोग बचपन में आकाश गंगा की बात करते थे. Now they are atmospheric rivers. And to give you a scale, some of these rivers are 25 times the size of the Ganges in terms of the volume of water which is trapped over there. And because of that, now you're getting this whole phenomena of rain bombs. So एक तरफ rain bombs हो रहे हैं, और दूसरी तरफ, if you look at parts of central India, eastern India, the top 1 meter of the topsoil is getting completely baked dry. Farmers, we are losing arable land all the time, and that's why the farmers suicides, etc. So you're seeing both of this. It is estimated something like 20% of the agricultural land in India is right now semi-arable because of this. So we are talking about a livelihood. Mota aap dekh lijiye 70 crore kisan hai, and let's assume whatever 10% of them are impacted. You're talking about numbers which can create social unrest in our country. This is very, very serious. And depending on which country you live in, I'm sure you heard such shocking statistics. So with all this in mind, and I'm quoting now from a video I saw recently of Al Gore, whom I have a lot of respect for. Ek baar I heard him talk live in the US. He said, chalo, all this is alarming and we can't keep wringing our hands. He said something very interesting. The sustainability business revolution can be the single biggest business opportunity in the history of the world. This can be the scale of the industrial revolution. And in terms of speed, it can be faster than the digital revolution, which we are facing right now. So there is a massive opportunity for us to do something about it. I'm just going to pause for a second in case there's a thought or an observation.
Yeah, maybe for later, but certainly I think all these facts are so revealing and shocking, and even I also read and talk about. But the question is of inaction or feeling with the same intensity, right? When so much is ahead of us, and we already are observing. We are living in Gurgaon, one of the world's most polluted city, and despite that, Diwali next day, Diwali was supposed to be clean because of the rain, but the next day, because of the all the crackers bursting, right? It was terrible after that. So I think the question is why, as a humanity, as a community together, we are not feeling the pain and what lies ahead terrible, and we can when we already can see day in day out. But we can address it later. But that was just a quick reaction.
नहीं एकदम आप ठीक बोल रहे हैं विशाल जी. In fact, I'm sure Neeraj ji and the people joining from the US, they can tell you that this is a far larger part of their narrative. We Indians, we've got such big and immediate problems where our populations don't have enough money to eat. The biggest single government announcement, if you think about it, which might have influenced the election results, which came recently, of course, and I don't know what you guys feel about it, is the fact that we will give free food grains to 70 crore people for the next 5 years. माने अभी we are so low on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, इसलिए these things which will impact our children and their grandchildren, unfortunately, are far too high for the average person. But it is up to leaders like yourselves to start talking about it. I'm very glad that we are talking about it today. But we Indians, I must say, average Indians, we are guilty of not even talking about it enough. Now and then, you read articles, etc., but I hardly see very many NGOs, etc., doing something about it compared to what I saw in Europe, which is up front and center. It was a part of our lives. I'll give you a simple example. In India, चाहे आप जितनी भी sustainable brand बना लें, and since I've always been in the branded product business, consumers are not willing to pay even 5% extra for it. That is a very good testimony of what sustainability means to us Indians today. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So we have an opportunity of changing minds, of impacting hearts, and hopefully, this forum, Jain.in can play a role in this. So let me now quickly jump into the bit which is relevant to us at Jain.in. Yeah. So see, greenhouse gases, a lot of it happens because of big time transportation and factories spewing out the stuff, etc., etc. But what we forget is that greenhouse gases are made out of carbon dioxide and methane. And methane is a very, very big part of that. And guess what? Animal agriculture on an industrial scale right now. So animal agriculture as in rearing cattle, sheep, goats for meat, or rearing the same for milk. Dono. Now, this is where it gets alarming for us, and it will start challenging things, because actually I'm not talking about vegetarianism, I'm talking about veganism. So, which means even though we have a sympathetic audience right now on this call, but most of us are vegetarians, we are not vegan. So we are now talking about a big challenge to our own lifestyles. This is not easy. At least that's when I was confronted by this, it was not easy for me, I can tell you that. Yeah. So now let me give you a quick set of facts which will help us tell the story. 70 billion animals, land animals, are killed every year to feed ourselves. 70 billion, which means on an average 10 animals per head per year. Sab kuch, chicken wicken mila ke, you might be wondering, how can it be 10 per head? But agar sab kuch aap mila le, land animals, not fish, 70 billion. Okay. This is what we kill every year. Now, this releases massive amounts of methane on one side, this whole killing, because as you might have read, 25 to 30% of all animal food is wasted. And the moment it's wasted, it releases methane. Yeah. On the other hand, the entire animal agriculture uses 45% of the Earth's land. and is responsible for 30% of the Earth's water consumption. Yeah. So to give you a sense, and now I'm giving you American statistics, so I'll default to pounds and gallons. I apologize for that. Gallon is 3.4 liters, right? Pound we know. 2.2 pounds make a kilo, right? 1,800 gallons of water are required to make 1 pound of meat. Now, this gets really alarming because even 1 pound of butter requires 665 gallons. So हम लोग दूध के नाय नहीं है, दुल्हे नहीं है. We have a problem over here. ये दूध और मक्खन और सब कुछ, this comes as a massive cost. You require 500 gallons of water to produce 1 pound of chicken. However, just to have a bath or something, you need 3-4 gallons of water, right? For one washing machine load, you need 15 gallons of water. For 1 pound of tomatoes, you need 28 gallons of water. Phool gobi ke liye you need 22. So can you see 50x water consumption to create the same meat? So the whole water crisis could pretty much be solved at one shot if you were to just do a 0-1 binary switch. Of course, we are talking about a change across maybe the next 2 generations. And before I go deeper into these alarming facts, remember, human beings are capable of changing. In my lifetime, I've seen smoking come down. जब हम कॉलेज में थे, हम सब सिगरेट पीते थे. अब when I look at our kids' generations who go to college, almost none of them smoke. Some of them smoke up. Marijuana पी लेते हैं, पर सिगरेट नहीं पी रहे अब. So humans are capable of, doing fundamental changes, things which they're addicted to. So this is the good news. Now, in the US, because that is the country which is most aware, hence most of the facts are coming there. From there, half of all water used goes for animal agriculture. Half of all water. In India, my guess is much higher, given all our Gaurakshaks, etc. No offense to anyone on this call. So, animal agriculture is responsible for 18% of all greenhouse emissions. 18%. Yeah. So that is the impact. Now, here is the good news. Since greenhouse gases are carbon dioxide and methane, carbon dioxide takes several years to clean up. However, methane, if you stop producing methane, cleaning up methane and that leaving it the atmosphere is several times quicker than CO2. So cleaning up methane has been identified by the UN as one of the quickest wins which we can have. Yeah. The other places where this whole bit about using animal products, and I'm including milk dairy farming here, that's very important, is deforestation. 1 acre of rainforest is destroyed every second. As we speak, the size of 1 football field of rainforest is being decimated in Brazil or Indonesia or Sumatra or even India for that matter, right? Achha. And then, I can go into saving the oceans. We know now oceans have dead zones because there are trillions of fish which are being taken out of our ocean. Yeah. Now, here's the sad fact. 45% of them are collateral damage. They are not fit for eating or any purpose. But because बहुत बड़ी सी net वो डालते हैं, they clean up all the fish as a part of that, which is driving species extinction. Yeah. So experts are agreeing that 137 species of animals and plants are getting wiped out every day. माने हर साल 50,000 species are being wiped out. Most of them because of animal farming, overfishing, etc., etc. So, it is obvious that if we were to espouse the tenets of Ahimsa Paramo Dharma, yeah, we can fundamentally make a massive difference in the whole discourse on climate change, greenhouse gas emission, deforestation, conserving water, reducing pollution, etc., etc. So the UN now, so this is not us crazy Jains talking. The UN has said a global shift towards a vegan diet is vital to save the world from hunger and the worst impacts of climate change. This is a UN quote from UNDP. Right. So now everywhere there's a quotation, there's an attribution. Whatever I'm sharing with you, My cousin's a really thorough researcher from whom I borrowed some of this stuff. So ditching animal products could reduce our personal carbon footprint by up to 67%. Oxford University says it could be as high as 75%. Now, these guys and a bunch of Oxford researchers went and analyzed 40,000 factory farms in 119 countries to look at this impact. So just so that you know, these are very, very carefully researched facts which we can use in the future. Yeah, so if you were to bring it together, and this is where, I make the case to all of us in terms of what we should be doing. So this entire insatiable demand for animal-based food, is driving the destruction of our planet to a very large level. One relevant fact, 18% of greenhouse gases from animal farming. What do you think is the greenhouse gas emission because of all transportation on Earth? 14%. So actually, animal farming is far more damaging than all the aircraft, railways, airplanes put together. But nobody talks about it today. We are talking about, अच्छा, ये Euro 5 है या Euro 6 है, and ये Euro 4 की जितनी भी कारें दिल्ली शहर में नहीं चल सकती हैं. We have these discourses, but nobody is talking about what is the bigger villain today, at least not in India, right? So we could be impacting. Okay, so a gist of talk can be published. Okay, I'll come back to questions later on. So we could be talking about, by fundamental change in human consumption habits, impacting global warming, climate change, deforestation, water depletion, contamination of our lakes, rivers, species extinction, topsoil erosion. This is literally a Brahmastra, if there were one. And guess what? Our children and our grandchildren are going to be very, very grateful if we can start at least this narrative, because obviously it is going to be the youth which will have to pick this up and change habits. Most of us are pretty entrenched there. I would challenge most of us saying, अच्छा, हम प्रण ले सकते हैं कि नहीं कि all dairy-based products we are going to avoid, and we can talk about this later. But yeah, we are talking about life change over here. So the case for veganism, if I can just make a couple of points over here, and I hope there's a non-vegetarian on this call who can challenge me. Yeah, that is very important. If I have a completely sympathetic audience, maza nahi aayega. So one, it is excellent for a person's health. Yeah, and I will make the case to you just now. To the moral and ethical piece of it, we know kis behrami se animals are killed to feed us, and just the whole bit about extraction of milk from a cow. A cow is lactating for 9 months in a year. Kya karte hain? Wo bichara bachada jata hai, is given a little drink, dragged away so that the cow can be milked. We are talking about using the milk of a mother, snatching it away from the child so that we can feed our appetite for butter and ghee and paneer. Right? And that's what happens. That's milk for you. And of course, the whole environmental reason, which we talked about. So very quickly, so that we have some time for discussion, I'll give you the highlights in terms of very carefully researched, scientifically evidenced health benefits of a vegan versus a vegetarian diet. Ye bahut zaruri hai. Can help in lowering cholesterol levels. And right now, in the interest of time, I won't give you the facts, but these are numbers. Somebody said, can you publish numbers? I can't, but I'll get my brother, who's writing a book on this, to publish this shortly, because I must attribute it to the right sources. So very clearly, there was a China study, which was done over 20 years across 6,500 adults in 130 villages in 65 countries, including China. And this basically said that among all the participants, the dietary cholesterol from the vegans was less than 20% of people who are either vegetarians or have animal diets. Number two, validated bit about blood pressure levels, 37% reduction in high blood hypertension on vegan diets over a period of time. May bring down blood sugar levels. It's not totally, I'm using may because there's not complete validation on this one, but there's a lot of empirical evidence. Definitely reduces the risk of cancer, and there are detailed studies on how cancer is driven by animal-based diets. We know certain kind of cancers only occur in those countries where animal diet is very, very high as a part of it. So that's, of course, circumstantial evidence. Very important. This is what's relevant to everybody in this call. Since most of us use milk products, it may reduce osteoporosis. Minimizing consumption of animal products, especially milk products, can reduce osteoporosis because this is caused by calcium, which is diverted in our bloodstream to fight the inflammation caused by milk or dairy products. So basically, it's called leaching of calcium. The calcium which goes towards building your bones is diverted away when you have dietary milk. Yeah, and then there are a whole lot of evidence, but in the interest of time, rather than take you into boring facts and numbers, let me share with you a little bit of a story which has been pieced together. Some of you might have heard of a book called Sapiens. Harari is a famous anthropologist, pieced with a really strident and a well-meaning person called Dr. Lalit Kapoor out of California. He's from IIT, who's done some fundamental research on the benefits of veganism. And here is how it goes. If you think about the history of humanity, and I'll just take 2 minutes and then I'll shut up so that we can have a conversation. Human beings, the early humans, the Cro-Magnon man before Homo sapiens, has walked the earth for about 2 million years. Yeah. And it was mainly in the area, I was recently, in fact, in Africa. It happened in the Rift Valley area where there was dense trees, covers, etc. So basically, early humans used to live on trees. So they used to live on trees. So they used to basically eat fruits, roots, berries, nuts, etc. And now and then, thode bahut keda makode. That fundamentally, so they have done the poop analysis of the paleo diet from fossils. And they figured out that 95% of the diet of the caveman, so as to say, was basically vegetarian, non-animal matter. So this is scientific evidence we are talking about. Now what happened was, through climate change and as humans migrated to non-tree bearing areas, we started going to grasslands. So early humans, Homo erectus, went up the Rift Valley, went into what is the Mesopotamian civilization, the Nile civilization, 5,000 years back. Wahan itne ped nahi the. So they started using grains. So suddenly wheat, rice, etc., that became a part of our diet. And that has been the case pretty much for 95% of humanity's time on earth. So this is how our DNA is built, right? For digesting and assimilating plant-based whole food, uncooked. Only in the last 5 to 10,000 years, when we discovered weapons, did we start killing animals and then cooking them, etc. So fundamentally, the body has not been geared up. So the body, to change our DNA, to change our entire organ systems, it takes millennia to do it. And just the last 4,000-5,000 years, ever since the Bronze Age, has just not been long enough time for our bodies to attune to itself. So fundamentally, the thesis over here, and now I'm quoting Dr. Lalit Kapoor on this, is that most of the current day illnesses have started happening over the last few hundred years, and they're attributable to the wrong food. And now this brings me back to the tenets of Jainism. Fundamental to our body's history to be healthy and for humans to repair themselves, the fundamental tenets are around resting and fasting. So परिग्रह, परहेज, जो भी हम बोलते हैं, it was such an important part of Jainism. And of course, by following the circadian rhythm. Most of our dadi, nanis never used to eat after sunset. What were they doing? They were doing intermittent fasting. Yeah. So fundamentally, the thesis over here is plant-based whole foods. We were not meant to suckle milk of another mammal. There is no other mammal on earth which suckles the milk of another mammal. Period. Pehle 1-1.5 saal you suckle the milk of your mother. That's it. After that, plant-based whole foods, fasting, parigrah, don't eat after sunset. Some of the very basics of our Jain tenets is something which can repair a lot of the issues which we are facing today and fueling the trillions of dollars to the pharma industry and to the so-called food patterns. So these are, some random evidences which I'm presenting to all of us in terms of how can we make the connection of the principles of Jainism, Ahimsa Parama Dharma, Parigrah, and see if we can make a link of this to fundamentally change human behavior for saving the planet. So with this, let me stop talking so that we have some time for getting in a good, robust debate on this. And I'd love to hear a counterpoint rather than agreements. And I'm going to take some notes while you talk.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Amit.
Amit. Thank you.
Yeah, Piyush.
No, look, I'll just summarize 2-3 points. So basically what we heard is, in summary, that we are facing a massive crisis as far as the very survival of our Earth, humanity is concerned, in the form of climate change. A large contributor to the climate change, greenhouse gases, methane, is animal farming. Animal farming, and it contributes more to the greenhouse gases than all the vehicles put together. And I think the controversial point a little bit for this group, maybe because I think most of this group is all for vegetarianism, but when we talk animal farming, it does include milk as well, because that is also requires animal farming, and it has both the components. So there is this component that you need to farm animal, but it's also the component that it does involve cruelty. Milk is often the byproduct, or you can call milk and meat as twin products of the same process. So I think there is both the dimensions of ethical dimension that that we all, as proponents of non-violence, do not want any living being to suffer. I think from that perspective, vegetarianism and now increasingly veganism we're talking about is good, and also for Earth it's good. So there is something which is in our heritage which has been discovered. And third reason, sorry, I missed that, is for a health reason as well. So for very selfish health reason as well, it's good. So I think from whichever dimension we look at it, I think following Jain principle or Jain advocated diet and actually enhancing it is better for us. We also touched upon not eating at night, which is kind of gives you intermittent fasting, which is also a fantastic way of keeping healthy. So this is a good reminder that how our forefathers were very wise in coming up with some prescriptions of how we should live it on this planet while minimize our impact on the planet. So fantastic discussion, and would love to hear any points, anybody who wants to add to this, or any counterpoints as well, or questions.
Thank you so much,
Neeraj ji.
Piyush.
Neeraj bhaiya, yes.
अमित जी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। मैं आपको जी बोलूंगा कि उम्र में आपसे मैं छोटा हूँ, और यहाँ पर जैसा अपन सब जानते हैं, अपन मोस्टली यहाँ पर सब लोग जैन हैं और नॉन वेजिटेरियन शायद कोई नहीं होगा, लेकिन मैं एक पॉइंट शेयर करना चाहता हूँ कि मैं भी जैन हूँ, वेजिटेरियन हूँ। ऐसी बात हो रही थी वीगनिज्म को लेकर के किसी फ्रेंड के साथ जो नॉन वेजिटेरियन है, तो उन्होंने एक अपना पॉइंट रेज किया जो मेरे दिमाग में नहीं था, तो मैं आपको शेयर करना चाहता हूँ और आप उस पर अपना पॉइंट रखिए कि जब हम वीगन बनने की बात करते हैं तो हम डेयरी प्रोडक्ट तो छोड़ देते हैं, लेकिन फिर अल्टरनेट प्रोडक्ट कंजम्पशन की बात शुरू हो जाती है। जैसे सोया मिल्क हो गया, आलमंड मिल्क हो गया, कैश्यू मिल्क हो गया। वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज में बहुत है। मैं खुद भी चाय और कॉफी में मिल्क नहीं लेता हूँ, बिकॉज ऑफ सम अदर रीजन आई स्टार्टेड फॉर सम अदर रीजन, देन आई रियलाइज दैट वी शुड नॉट बी हैविंग मिल्क। मैं वीगन नहीं हूँ, तो मैं सोया मिल्क कंज्यूम करता हूँ। तो उस व्यक्ति ने मुझे बोला कि ठीक है, ये बात, लेकिन आप अगर स्टेटस देखेंगे कि जब सोयाबीन की खेती करनी होती है साउथ ऑफ अमेरिका में, तो उसके लिए भी ह्यूज प्लांटेशन को कट कर दिया जाता है। और वो अपना अपना पॉइंट दे रहे थे, मैंने कोई रिसर्च नहीं की, मैंने कोई आर्ग्यूमेंट नहीं किया, मैंने उनकी बात सुनी। तो वो भी उनका एक पॉइंट है कि नहीं भाई, यही सॉल्यूशन नहीं है। एक तो मेरा इस पे आपका जो पॉइंट है कि कोई काउंटर आर्ग्यूमेंट हो, तो वो पॉइंट मैं रखना चाह रहा था, वो मैंने रखा, तो आप उस पर कुछ बताइए। और दूसरा पॉइंट ये है कि अगर नॉन वेजिटेरियन इतना बड़ा कल्प्रिट है, बिगर देन द कल्प्रिट ऑफ बर्निंग फॉसिल फ्यूल, तो फिर ये जो हमारे वर्ल्ड लीडर्स हैं COP28 के जहां भी इकट्ठे होते हैं, मोस्टली उनकी बात इसी पर होती है कि भाई फॉसिल फ्यूल बंद करो। वो तो सही बात है, वो तो रोकना ही पड़ेगा, और इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल्स एंड ऑल दोस थिंग्स, रिन्यूएबल एनर्जीज, ऑल दोस थिंग्स आर हैपनिंग। पर मैंने इतने इन लीडर्स को कभी ये कहते नहीं सुना कि भाई आप नॉन वेजिटेरियनिज्म और या फिर जो भी क्या कहते हैं ये एनिमल फार्मिंग है, इसको रोका जाए और उसके लिए फंडिंग की जाए कि जो लोग नॉन वेज के बेसिस पे अपनी लाइफ जीते। क्योंकि इस दुनिया में आई एम श्योर कि 7 बिलियन पॉपुलेशन में से काफी ज्यादा लोगों की लाइफ उस पर ही डिपेंडेंट है। तो उसको अगर रोक देंगे तो उनकी लाइफ लिविंग पे असर आएगा, तो उसके लिए फंडिंग की भी बहुत जरूरत होगी। तो वो इसकी बात नहीं करते हैं। तो जो मैं समझता हूँ अपने पर्सनल लेवल पे कि शायद ये इज मोर ऑफ अ पॉलिटिकल थिंग रादर देन इवन दे नो कि हाँ भाई, जैसे आपने बोला कि यूनाइटेड नेशंस ने भी इसके ऊपर बोला है, तो फिर वो उस पर ज्यादा काम क्यों नहीं करते? फोसिल फ्यूल पे भी काम करें और उस पर भी करें। तो हम जैन लोगों को ये सुन के बहुत अच्छा लगता है कि वेजिटेरियन अच्छा है, क्योंकि हम खुद वेजिटेरियन हैं। लेकिन हमारी पॉपुलेशन तो इतनी कम है कि अगर हम भी चेंज कर लेंगे तो असर तो पड़ेगा, लेकिन बहुत ज्यादा नहीं पड़ेगा। और जैन लोगों को कोई जानता भी नहीं, जैसे अपना अपना एक्सपीरियंस शेयर किया टू बिगिन विद इन योर इंट्रोडक्शन। मेरा भी सेम एक्सपीरियंस है यहाँ पे रिसेंटली, और जब मैं शेयर करता हूँ, पूछते हैं भी जैन क्या होते हैं, तो आई वाज सरप्राइज कि मेरे जो इंग्लिश कलीग्स हैं वो रिसर्च करके आते हैं फॉर नेक्स्ट मीटिंग की बनी रसे बात करनी है जैन के बारे में, और मुझे बताते हैं कि आप तो चलते हो तो भी जमीन साफ करके चलते हो। तो एक अलग तरह से अपने को अच्छी फीलिंग आती है। पर मेरा पॉइंट ये है कि ये सिर्फ बात करने की हो गई कि भाई वेजिटेरियन होना चाहिए, पर इसको चेंज लाना कि इतना आसान है कि दुनिया के सारे लोग, इवन नॉट सारे लोग, मोस्ट ऑफ द लोग 60-70%, 50% वेजिटेरियन बन जाएं। क्या ये पॉसिबल है? क्या इसके लिए लीडर्स को काम नहीं करना चाहिए? क्या फिर ये सिर्फ बात करने की बात रह जाएगी? ये मेरे 2 पॉइंट्स हैं, आपको जस्ट फूड फॉर थॉट।
मैं I'll just give you a couple of comments and then I'm sure other people will also have their inputs on this. देखिए, एक तो आपने वो जो सवाल पूछा था राइट एट द बिगनिंग, सोया मिल्क वर्सेस ऑर्डिनरी मिल्क, हाँ, उसमें आई शेयर्ड विथ यू अ नंबर वेयर इट सेड दैट you need 565 gallons to make 1 pound of butter, versus that you need something like 26 to 28 gallons to make 1 pound of any vegetable matter. So yes, soya does need cultivation, it does need land, etc. But for the same amount of milk to be produced, the productivity of soya would be more than 20x. That is the simple answer to that question. Ki any other vegetable source of milk, whether it is almond, soya, अब तो तरह तरह के आ गए हैं, even rice milk भी आ गया है, all of them have much lesser pressure on greenhouse emissions, because we know the biggest problem is these cows and goats, they keep belching and farting and emitting methane all the time. So that is the biggest culprit. So that is the comparison between normal milk and soy milk. You don't want so many cattle belching away, etc. So incidentally, our agenda in India, एक तरफ से गौ हत्या बंद कर दिया है, but by keeping all these cattle alive, we are not doing a service to either our country or to our planet. Just by the way, to touch upon another controversial topic. अच्छा, एक तो ये है, और दूसरा आप पूछ रहे हैं कि भाई इसके बारे में चर्चा क्यों नहीं हो रही है? Why aren't governments acting on that? So, Al Gore in his video, his original video, the famous video which brought this whole discourse 15 साल पहले right up front, was called an inconvenient truth. It's inconvenient. Yeah. The fact that we drive big automobiles and go in big planes and this whole consumption culture, all of this is very inconvenient. And among all these truths, the most inconvenient is कि भाई जो हम खाना ही खाते हैं, the very essence of what we are, even that is burning a hole in this planet. वो तो सब में बड़ा inconvenient truth है. हाँ? And if you were to balance it with some of the other contributors to climate change, like I told you, abhi animal farming is 18% of greenhouse gas emissions. So there are other bigger battles to fight. This is slightly lower down the pyramid. Hence the suggestion was this is something which doesn't require government action. ये मैंने right at the beginning setup में आपको बताया था कि देखिए ट्रांसपोर्टेशन का मोड चेंज करना, एनर्जी का मूविंग फ्रॉम कोल टू सोलर एक्सेट्रा रिक्वायर्स गवर्नमेंट और लार्ज कॉर्पोरेट. बट चेंज ऑफ डाइट you don't need governments and large corporate to debate it. It is human behavior. So this is hence lower down on government agendas right now, on institutional agendas who are focusing on the much bigger problems to solve, is my guess. But now let's open it up to others in terms of what they feel.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir. Dr. Priyanshu Jain this side. I would just like to add something to this because I just completed my PhD from Deakin University, and the very topic was, to find the alternative source of omega-3 fatty acids. Like you see that they are like common supplements which are of fishes. So I worked on algae. Algae are like photosynthetic microscopic organisms, and they are very rich in these EPA and DHA. So would like to add that as we are discussing about the plants and other things, so these are also very rich sources of the protein and other nutritional supplements which are available in the market. So we could discuss on these things, and also adding to the point that like I'm sorry, he was discussing that why people the leaders which gathered, they didn't discuss this thing. So recently actually I wrote an article on this vegetarianism, and where I just did some research, and there was a point which I noted that all the leaders were actually discussing on this thing, that meat is actually the biggest culprit for contributing to the greenhouse gases, and at the same time the hypocrisy was they were having meat on their plates. So it's not that they are not aware, it's just that it's so common, or they don't want to accept it. They're just bringing it on the table, but they are not accepting it in their lifestyle. So if we as a Jain, we could suggest something, or we could organize such kind of funding where we we could have some scientists where they are knowing the alternative sources of these things, and we all can contribute to the other sources which are available and which are suitable for vegetarian, vegan, both people. So there are options available, commonly spirulina and chlorella. They are very common supplements which are available. They are rich in proteins and calcium and all the other substituents which are found in milk. Which are found in milk, of course, and in other non-vegetarian products. So there are things available in the market.
Brilliant point. Thank you so much. If I just may add my uninformed, unscientific point of view on this one. Apart from using algae, and you talked about spirulina, etc., some of them are also sourced from the sea. They have also identified seaweed as a very big source.
Right. Yeah.
So just to add to your point.
Right. So microalgae is basically, microscopic in nature, and seaweed is basically, giant organisms which are actually species of algae itself. So seaweed is really available in oceans, and also they do actually on a large scale cultivation of this thing. But we grow algae in lab, and even wastewater is nowadays being utilized for cultivating, and they actually use the CO2 and they emit oxygen. So it's a very good thing as we are talking about methane and other things. So the algae are actually because they are being the primitive sources of these things.
So no, great point, Priyanshuji. I think there is always so many options, but लेकिन वो कि जिह्वा पे control, right? कि ultimately as humans controlling on our tongue, right? That has become the thing. I think a lot of people have raised the hand. Maybe Jyoti, if I can ask you to ask question, and maybe after that, Narendra ji and Rikab as well. Jyoti.
Mr. Jain, it's a pleasure to have you here. It's a very informative and inspiring conversation. My name is Jyoti Singhvi. I am calling in from the US. And I wanted to just highlight two things. As you mentioned earlier, more than government intervention, it's consumer driven. And I'll just share some perspective from the US point of view. A lot more, I don't have the percentages, a lot more people are getting driven to vegan diets, not even vegetarian, vegan diets. The main reason is health, number one. And the second reason is environment. So the reason and how this came about is basically influencers, health gurus, environmental gurus, and they keep following people like those. And then they see the results, good results, and how they feel both emotionally, physically, and mentally. That keeps them sustaining on this kind of a lifestyle. It's incredible when 30 years ago, 35 years ago, when you go to a US restaurant, not in a major city, you'd be like, I'm a vegetarian. Can I get, something vegetarian to eat? Well, I have chicken or I have fish. I'm like, but that's not vegetarian. And then I'd have to dig in deeper. There's chicken broth or beef broth, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I used to live in New York, but now I live in Nashville. Veganism is so common. So I'm a vegetarian, but just to be easy, I just say I'm vegan. And they're like, oh man, you can't have this. It has honey. I'm like, I love the level of awareness, even in a mid-sized city like Nashville. So that's amazing. The second thing is that there is such a big prevalence of plant-based diet that there is a lot of, you just said tongue, right? Taste and everything. Vishal, you said that. So they are actually creating plant-based meat-like products. So there is, I don't want to name them, whatever, patties and burgers and stuff like that. So this is to appease the people who still don't want to let go of that flavor, but want to have a plant-based diet. The final thing I want to say is there is also a lot to be said about lobbying of, meat industry or fossil fuel industry or the EV vehicle industry. So the greater the lobbies and the greater the money flow from there into the government, at least from the US perspective, the more energy and support from the government point of view in that area. So, but there's a lot of power in numbers. So whatever the citizens decide to do, they can take, their lifestyles and the economy in that direction.
Yeah.
All great points. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're fortunate to live in by far the most awakened culture right now on earth when it comes to this. Clearly, the US is leading the way, with the exception of some of the Nordic countries, which, of course, I think are the most civilized places on earth. But you're right. I've seen it for myself. Like California is a heaven. Every menu has got a vegan section on it now. So you can see that. But we in India are relatively far more basic. Think about that.
Yeah.
Veganism is not even a conversation in India.
Yeah. Maybe Rikab and Narendra ji, then followed by the Rikab. You want to ask a question?
Sure. Thank you, Vishal ji. Amit ji, great pleasure to meet you and very inspiring as well. I just had one comment and one question. So you spoke about Mr. L.M. Kapoor, and we all spoke about the health benefits. And I can tell you personally that whatever principles and outlines that Mr. L.M. Kapoor gives on a monthly basis to multiple people around the world, my own brother, he followed his recommended diet about becoming a vegan, intermittent fasting. He consistently followed it for the last 6 months. His diabetes has reversed. He's got rid of thyroid, and he was also an arthritis patient and is completely got rid of that arthritis pain as well. So this is the real magic that I've personally seen of my own brother. I also joined the same call. The only difference is that he was able to practice, I wasn't. So now it's an inspiration that hopefully I will follow suit, because I don't need a better example than my own brother. So definitely veganism is the way forward. Coming to my question, I think, being in Singapore, it is hard sometimes. You're very right that sometimes your Jain principles get tested very clearly. And each time there is some fascination with non-vegetarians in convincing vegetarians to have non-veg food. So we also get into those debates. But there is one question where somewhere I always get stuck. So I just thought I could use this platform when they say that, well, we vegans and vegetarians, you also have plant-based food, and plant also has life. So how do you justify that? Because then they say you're not a perfect vegetarian, but you are like more like a flexitarian or something of that sort. So how do you respond to those kind of comments?
One response I use for it, can I share that?
Absolutely.
So it may not be the perfect response, but one of the things, which personally for me, why I believe vegetarianism is important is because to eat meat, you cause pain. And we all want to avoid pain, right, to other living beings. And we if you go just scientifically, pain has a purpose. When you try to hurt an animal, it runs away. Why? Because, it feels the pain. So you know for sure that it's feeling the pain. In case of plants, while we should avoid, first of all, in Jainism, we still say that even if you have plant meal, you should avoid destroying the plant as far as possible. Plug the fruit which fall by themselves are the best. But even if we were to say that, that may not be always possible, plants don't run away. For me, that's a proof that plants don't feel pain. They don't have a central nervous system, and they don't feel pain like animals do. Because pain would be pointless for a plant or a tree. You feel the pain, but you can't run away. So it's pointless. So, from an evolutionary perspective, I'm just going scientific. That's for me is the biggest evidence. Yes, we all agree that plants have life, but they definitely do not feel pain. Certainly not in the way animals do. I mean, that may not be the full argument to convince somebody. For me, that's an important distinction between a plant diet and an animal diet.
Also, in this case, I can add something that Jainism believes minimize your sins, maximize your good deeds to achieve salvation. So the plants, they are one sense life. They are only sense of touch. Whereas most animals that are being killed, they are five sense life. And it is not even geometric progression, but super geometric progression. The sin that is accumulated and also adverse effect on the environment, as rightly said by Amit Ji. All this combined makes it illogical and very wrong to compare animals and plants eating based on this. Jainism believes in five things: philosophy, which is religion or lifestyle, health, science, logic, and also it believes that humanity is the base of all religion, but in Jainism it is believed to be to the greatest extent possible all living beings. But because we are human beings, we have to eat. And if we have to eat, and if we have a choice of 1 cent, 2 cents, 3 cents, 4 cents, 5 cents life, if we limit it to 1 cent, that makes very logical choice. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think
It's a great point.
that also, I want to thank you so much, Narendraji. I wanted to just add that so much maybe about being vegetarian is more about, hey, it's good for environment, climate change. Seems like a distant, hey, it's like everybody's problem. But other thing when we talk about being vegetarian is that you are not harming a soul. And when you harm a soul, as Piyush Bhaiya said, you are causing a pain. It is going to come back. And you feel, for example, I posted to get 1 kg or one like silk for a 1 sari is equal to about a 1 million silkworms are dead in that process. So when you do that and when you wear that and you wish that I want a peace, I don't want to be having depression, I want happiness, how could you? Eventually it's going to come back. So I think in our case, the dialogue has to be much deeper in the, even as Jains, I think, of course, one is the environment and climate that people relate to it. That's very practical to relate to. But there is that theory of karma, not causing pain, not causing concern. Parisparograho jivana, we all are interdependent. We were not meant to be. And when you do that, cause that pain, it is going to come back. So don't wish for happiness if you are causing a pain for somebody. And even that's your talk, Miji, has inspired me. In case I want to cut down my milk, like tea, for example, right? It starts, and I think it's a like really going in the journey, and absolutely it's a lot of cruelty. While we wish it was allowed, and our gods and all, where they have had even our Maharaj and son, but the reality is that it is with so much of deep pain, and there are so many documentary where they bring tears in your eyes. So absolutely, I think I just wanted to add that element, that it's environmental planet is one, but there is that soul and karma which is going to come back, and that is more direct. And I think people have to really understand that it is going to come back. So don't wish for peace if at all you're causing a harm, right? So just wanted to add that. Thank you.
It is very
I will
true.
add
That
one.
is why we say not only Jain diet, but Jain diet plus Jain lifestyle, both combined, is the best.
One thing, I wanted to say, I always say that, right, that like 300 years back, or maybe 200 years back even, slavery was common, and nobody thought, that it was bad. Like the most civilized parts of the world thought that, it was okay to torture black people, abduct them and subject them as a thing. And in many parts of the world, slavery was considered common, right? And today we look down upon slavery. I'm pretty sure that 100 years from now, we will look back at a time where, we had these animals who we treated so badly. And, you won't be able to believe that actually that's how people live. If you just look at it biologically, now that there is DNA testing and all there, a cow shares 94% of DNA with a human being. So it's only a spectrum. The DNA difference between a black person and a white person might be 0.1%. With a cow, it's 6%, but it's just a spectrum. So I think there will come a time where we will say that, look, how could we do this to animals who feel all the pain? I mean, you could see them. You could see a cow looking fondly at a calf, feeling all the pain, crying when a calf is taken away from them. I just think that time will come, and I think that the sooner it comes, it will be better for health, better for environment, better for earth. Mahendraji?
Sir, may I speak something? I am
Please.
M.K. Berathi from Jaipur, India.
Yes.
I am Jain. May I speak a few words?
Yeah,
Yes,
please.
sure.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I am M.K. Berathi from Jaipur, a social activist associated with large number of Jain organizations, Digambar Jain. So Amit ji touched upon a large number of points.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So I just want to say that he gave very useful information, amazing facts and figures about non-vegetarian and our principles of Jainism and preachings of Bhagwan Mahavir. So just 2 points only I want to touch upon. One is the spreading of the non-vegetarian food among the public, because in the population, not only from the general public, but in Jain community also. So I see here a very high level of intellectuals participating in this symposium or this talk, but we need to work at the ground level also. So just I made a suggestion in my chat column that these figures are so good, appealing to the general public also. So as per preachings, we should first try to restrict or motivate our people of Jain community to switch over to vegetarianism, those who are uh, moving towards or shifting towards non-vegetarian also. Leaving aside the figures given by him that 70 billion animals, earth animals living, excluding the fish, are being butchered every year. So, and causing a lot of damage to the environment. So just for preaching, for the preachings of Bhagwan Mahavir Ji or Jinedo, we do not have any right to butcher an animal. Plus, the damage caused to the environment. So these things should be brought to the notice of the general public. And also, as he just mentioned, that Seattle having the average temperature of 20 due to the large scale fires in the forests, Australia, California, South America. So the temperature was 49%. He just told that it was difficult to believe, because I also read in newspapers. The average temperature is increasing of the earth every year. And last year it was the hottest. And in 10 hottest cities, 7 cities were from India and Rajasthan also.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I will just conclude, sir. Just a minute. So this is a good group, and we Jains should take a lead in this holy program and और जियो और जीने दो जो भगवान महावीर का सिद्धांत है, तो उसमें कुछ इस तरह का एक जैन एक्टिविस्ट जैन एनवायरनमेंट प्रोटेक्शन ग्रुप ऐसा बने, ताकि जो भी आप सब लोग हम लोग काम करें, आम लोगों को, नॉन जैन्स में भी ये हो कि जैन कम्युनिटी इज वर्किंग टुवर्ड्स दिस होली मिशन एट सच ए ग्रेट लेवल. तो आपका ये पेपर्स में पब्लिश हो, सोशल मीडिया इज नाउ बिकम ए बिग पावर, तो इस तरह का कुछ हो तो बहुत अच्छा रहेगा. थैंक्स अ लॉट फॉर गिविंग मी एन अपॉर्चुनिटी टू स्पीक.
Sure.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you so much, Mantra ji.
So I guess we are just on top of the hour. It was a hot debate. I did not get the time to share my opinions or questions, but I think I'll just quickly, I guess everybody who has raised their hands have had the opportunity to share their points, and maybe I will just speak a couple of my thoughts on top of my mind, and then we'll wrap up the session. I do believe, number one, awareness is lacking. I think even educated, this group is represented by 4 to 5 countries of the world right now on this forum itself, and with the professionals working in various multinationals. But I think everybody has gained a lot from this session today, and we were not so aware. So I guess we need to be more aware. And I was just in a session on this Friday itself, where there was a talk by one of the persons who's been in Prime Minister's office on sustainability and all of these aspects. In fact, vegetarianism was a little less, but then landslides and then pollution and all of those aspects, and how, and actually, frankly speaking, many of the people said, and these were AI and analytics professionals, that things are going above our head. That means people are not aware, and that included me as well. So we need to be definitely more aware. Second, on the point why government lobbies and all, I think this is what Jainism says, that it is very easy to change the entire world. It is very difficult to change yourself. So the whole thing is that if I am used to milk, is it easy for me to give up? Not just because of the taste, but because of the habit itself. So I guess those are some of the issues that need to be addressed, and this has to, while the governments can do, but it has to come by a personal motivation. That is something that I think we Jains are fortunate to be born with, where we can do it more easily, and we are already doing a lot of it. So these are a couple of points. I had a few questions, but maybe I understand that we close this sharp at 9:30. So I would just want to wrap it up right now. And if anybody else also has questions, maybe you can direct to us on the Jainin group, and we will take it back to Amit ji and try to seek answers. But Amit ji, want to thank you. It was a wonderful session. We are more motivated to get external speakers now, because normally the format of this session is we do read about Jain scriptures, and we take a topic and we deep dive in that, and then we do have professionals who come and who talk about how Jainism principles have helped them in their professional success and professional life. But this was a topic which was very different, and actually aligned to the principles of Jainism in a very, very big and significant way. And hearing you, I feel nobody could have done it better. So it was just amazing conversation. I could not even divert my attention for a minute in this session, and so many pointers. We would reach out to you for some more specifics, or maybe to your cousin as well. This was just amazing and one of the best sessions that we had so far in this direction. So thank you so much. And just if you would want to share a few words before we wrap up, Amitji.
So no, I just want to say that I'm very confident I won't have the answers to your questions. So like most of you, I'm on a journey to learn and to teach myself about what we can do for the biggest problem which humanity faces today. So I'm happy to co-create and work collectively. I think some of you made super points. Rikab talked about Lalit Mohan Kapoor. Maybe we should invite him to come and talk to us. Joe talked about, what are the big changes. She gave some great numbers in the US. So maybe we can learn from the US in terms of where to take veganism. So I think we already have a lot of expertise, and the fantastic point made on the algae, etc. So I think we already have a lot of expertise on this community. And I would tap into everybody rather than directing these questions to me, because I'm on a pure learning mode right now. And for me, the mission is, how can we use the tenets of Jainism to build fundamental behavior change in a relevant manner, rather than saying कि भाई मेरी किताब में ये लिखा है तुम इसको follow करो. But if we can say this is important for your children and your grandchildren and the future of this planet, people are far more likely to espouse our principles than we quote the holy book to them. So I would really, if anybody is interested in working in that area, would be happy to join hands and share some thoughts.
So sure, Amitji, and we are a very close-knit community. So most of these people are members of Jainin, which is currently more of a WhatsApp group. But we are proud that people are very, very motivated, devoted, dedicated, as far as principally, and their hearts are there. Though time may be a little constrained, but hearts are definitely there to this cause, and therefore we're able to come together. And Jyoti, who raised significant points, means she's a Harvard and MIT alumni. She's a very dear friend in the US, and I think people like her and across the world, we saw the passion here. So definitely we can all come together, and this also gives us opportunities to know who can be the people that we can sync up with for these initiatives.
Yeah,
But,
please add me to the group, and I'd love to see what's the chat and what's the conversation and what we can do about it.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll all be in touch. But thank you so much for your time and for all the statistics and the information that you provided. It just opened our eyes even further. So thank you so much, and thank you, Piyush Bhaiya. Thank you, everyone on the group today, on the Zoom call today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Amit ji.
Forward to
Wonderful.
meeting next time.
Thank you.